Several years ago, Scott Black Johnston, pastor of Fifth Avenue Presbyterian Church, wrote a column the Wall Street Journal published on December 23rd. The piece was titled, "Welcome Once a Year Parishioners." Scott begins with an observation, writing, "Tomorrow night the church will be full. Some will come out of habit, harboring nostalgia for this night. Some will act out of courtesy. Yes, Grandma, I'll go with you. Some will be here because they enjoy the music of the season." Scott notes that some pastors, resenting the awkwardness and the unfamiliarity of many worshipers, choose this night to chastise people for not being in worship the other 51 weeks of the year. Now, I would never dream of doing such a thing. I do look forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. As for tonight, how about a different response? How about wonder? How about gratitude? How about amazement? What if our gathering tonight is a sign of the hope we still hold? Hope that God will show up and light the way. Scott writes, "This is the core of religion, the thing that binds us together, the thing that we haven't yet managed to suppress, the expectation that something is going to happen when we gather. That's why people turn out on Christmas Eve. They come to see if angels are going to show up and proclaim that there is a God who loves us and that heaven's great desire for us is peace." Yes, I am convinced that of the many motivations for your presence tonight, hope is the only credible explanation for this gathering. You are here tonight because you need to believe in light that outlasts darkness. Light that illuminates a path through the shadows. Light that comes beyond human capacity or control. And so you come to hear a story you already know. You come to sing words you remember from years past. You come to see faces glowing with Christmas joy. You come to light candles that pierce the darkness, to pause in the frenzy, to breathe in the moment, to be fully present on this holy night. We gather because we need hope, and hope grows best in community. You've heard Luke's story of the birth of Jesus, the decree issued from an insecure and unhinged emperor, the risky journey to Bethlehem, the overcrowded inn, the stunned shepherds, the angels filling the star-filled sky, the baby lying in a manger, the mother quietly considering what it might all mean. The story is set against a gathering storm, a growing threat, shadows on the horizon. We heard it in the prophet's proclamation. Yes, the light shines, but the darkness persists, always persists. We would be naive to pretend otherwise. From the stable in Bethlehem, the Holy Family is sent not to the safety of home or the protection of a palace, but to live as refugees in Egypt. The awesome power set loose in the birth of Jesus does not prevent the death of baby boys under King Herod's cruel command, nor has that power extinguished the force of evil in the centuries that have passed since. We still encounter the shadows. And we all know those who have surrendered to the darkness. We know those who have become convinced that life is nothing but disappointment and struggle. We know those who have lost the will to rise and shine. And sometimes we know them because they are us. Gathering storms, growing threats persist. No use denying that, even especially on this night. But here's the thing about hope and light. It only takes a little to overcome even the deepest darkness. Most of us learned this first as children. I was 5 years old when I sat my parents down to tell them I'd made an important decision. I asked them to leave the overhead lights and both lamps in my bedroom on all night long while I slept. I explained to them why, monsters and all. I felt that this was a reasonable response to the fear-inducing darkness. We could simply banish it for good. Mom and Dad patiently explained to me that this would be a little too much light and that I might have trouble sleeping. I was ready for that. I protested, I begged, I pleaded, and as the hours passed, I became more fearful. That night, as he was putting me to bed, my dad closed the door. He stood next to me, and he turned out the light. I was terrified. But then my father demonstrated a universal truth. He walked out of the room. He turned on the hallway light and left my door slightly cracked open. Now only a sliver of light came into the room, but it was enough. Enough to defeat the darkness and my fear. Listen, it only takes a little light to overcome the deepest darkness. The quiet assurance of a mother's whisper, the gentle touch of a trusted friend, the hurried prayer in a moment of panic, the simple chorus of a sacred song, the pure innocence of a child's delight, the gathered glow of lit candles. We pierce the darkness not with a blinding blaze of radiance, but with these slivers of light that bring just enough hope for the moment. Now, I'm not sure what kind of darkness you carried in here with you tonight. God knows there's more than enough to go around. Perhaps you are burdened by a fear of the future, concern for your children or grandchildren. Perhaps it's anxiety about money, worry over physical, mental, or spiritual health. Maybe you are in a dark time of depression or overcome by anger or nursing distrust. Maybe your heart has been broken by the painful words of one you love, or you have wounded someone you deeply care about. Maybe you regret a past decision, long for a relationship, grieve a loss, yearn for forgiveness, crave compassion, or want to make a change but have lacked the resolve to do it. I don't know your particular darkness, but beyond our own lives, there is darkness all over the world and in our own city. Acts of unthinkable violence in classrooms and homes, words of hatred spewed by so-called leaders, a refusal to see the full humanity of others, entrenched division with little interest in compassion or consensus, too much suffering. Too much injustice, too little kindness and mercy. No, I don't know which darkness has you in its grip this night. I do know this. The God who meets us here knows all about darkness. When the world was bleak, God's people held captive, hope all but gone. God crept in, born in the night, Mary's child. God comes not in blinding flashes of light, but in flickers of new life. God comes not in the blaring roar of triumph, but in the quiet night where shepherds scanned the dark horizon for storms or threats. God comes not in the halls of power, but in the embrace of a peasant couple far from home and under threat. Coming in need, Mary's child born in a borrowed room. When the world was shrouded in shadow, God arrived in the vulnerability of a human infant, just enough light to see, and God has never left us. Not in the deepest valley of death's shadow, not in the bottomless pit of grief, of deferred dreams and disruptive doubt, not in the downward spiral of anger and exasperation, not in the pain we cause or the grudges we hold, not in the most difficult days when we simply can't believe any of it. Hope may fade, but the promise of Christmas is that it will never be extinguished. Never. Hope shows up in unexpected places. You try everything you can imagine and you run out of options. You find yourself on your knees in desperate prayer. You come to worship on Christmas Eve, maybe out of obligation or nostalgia, and just when you are ready to give up, a sliver of light catches your eye, and it is enough. It is enough. Because this night we remember that hope sees best in the dark. This night the light breaks through the shadows. This night there is light enough to acknowledge if we choose to see it. There is light enough to reflect if we choose to share it. Way back in early January, I was putting our son Benjamin to bed. Benjamin is 5. It was too late, cold, dark. The day had been long and I was tired. The truth is that my soul was weary from the stress of ministry and the work of being human these days. I was aware of gathering storms and growing threats, and I was wondering if anything I did was having an impact. I was considering a change in course. Ben has a nightlight in his room. It's the shape of a cloud, and he asked me to turn it on. And when we were finished reading stories, I got up to leave, but my son asked me to stay. Dad? Yes, Benjamin. Dad, I'm so sad that you have to die before me. I will miss you every day. But it is good that you will be with God. Since God is in our family too, you will be with your family, right, Dad? He got it. Emmanuel, God with us. Just enough light to see the next step. Just enough faith to journey on. Hope shows up in unexpected places. Hope sees best in the dark. Friends, in just a moment, this room will grow dark. And in that darkness, we will welcome the gift of light. And then we will share that light through this sanctuary, each candle a symbol of the presence of God overcoming the deep darkness, bearing witness to a still deeper hope. It is the promise of presence we celebrate tonight. God's presence in our lives and in this world. It is the promise of hope that we proclaim this night, God's light glowing through the shadows. It may not seem like much when our fears are so real and the night is so dark, but here is the truth. Listen, nothing you fear is stronger than this promise. Nothing. It's Christmas. You are here. So let Christmas in. Receive the gift of hope, the power to see in the dark. Keep believing the promise. God shows up. God always shows up.